Hey! Welcome to Creative Block. We're your host, Gene.
And V, we interview people in the animation industry about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on Twitter if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
And today with us, we have Amanda Rynda.
Hey!
Yay!
Hey, you two.
How's it going? Yeah, we were just hearing about your puppy, your adorable puppy.
Yep, he's right here sleeping by my side. He never leaves my side.
That's a bonus guest for today's episode.
Yep.
Amanda and puppy. What's his name?
His name's Remy.
Remy.
How old is a puppy?
He's 6 months.
Remy the Ratatouille.
The
Puppetouille. Tell us who you are and what you do.
So I'm Amanda Rynda, and right now I am the co-EP on DC Superhero Girls at Warner Brothers.
It's very cool.
I love the show. I watched the season 1 on Netflix. It's just so cute.
It is cute. It's just like, it's really fun because all the girls are so totally different from each other and just awesome in their own right. So they're a lot of fun to tell stories with.
Yeah. Well, the three of us are part of the same Loud House Club that a lot of the guests have been on. We keep inviting on our friends. But yeah, you were the person who kind of brought me into animation because you were the art director on the Loud House at the time. And yeah, and you kind of kicked off my career. So thank you for that, first of all.
Of course. Well, you were awesome. You were such an awesome pick for that.
Thank you.
Job.
Thank you. It was really a big deal for me, and I don't know if I say it often enough, but yeah. And so you've had a really crazy career. You've had a really interesting path, and very almost like a rocket from where I'm sitting, and where it's just like boom, 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 and now you're a co-EP, and very deserved. But I think we'd love to hear about all that. But first, let's hear about baby Amanda and kind of what got you started in like art and got you on this track.
Sure. Well, I probably, like a lot of people that you talk to, I just was a kid that drew. I like to color and draw and really just do anything creative.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, I grew up doing that. I never knew what I wanted to do growing up.
Mm-hmm.
But, oh, do you hear Remy? He's dreaming.
Oh,
he's barking in his sleep.
I love this bonus.
Yeah, I never really knew what I wanted to do, but I did like just creating. And when I was in 4th grade, it's so funny because my best friend always tells me this story about we were in art class and we were sitting there at a big table and our assignment was to do still life drawings of flowers in a vase that were sitting right in front of us. Mm-hmm. And so she's drawing, my other friends are drawing, I'm drawing, but my best friend notices I'm really upset at my own drawing. And I'm like saying, oh, my drawing is terrible. And I just was so focused on trying to make it perfect that and to her, she wasn't an artist at all. And she didn't really care for drawing, but she looked over at mine and was like, man, that looks awesome. And she's she's so upset about it. I don't know what is going on. And it was that same year that my art teacher selected me from the class to be part of our it was called a G&T program. So it was called, Gifted and Talented. And so they sent me, my teacher knew that I had this knack for drawing, and she sent me through this program where I would get picked up. Our elementary school started at 9 o'clock in the morning, but the high school started at 7:45. So I used to get up early, extra early, and take the bus with the high schoolers and go do art at the high school, and then get shipped back to my elementary school. Damn. So it was like all around that same time when things were coming together that adults were noticing that this was something that I was interested in. And so it kind of just got started there. And I just continued with all of my art classes moving forward. There were kids that knew exactly what they wanted to do, and I just really liked to have a project in front of me, just anything that kept me creating something with my hands. Mm-hmm. So I just continued to do that, and I I didn't have like a real strong focus in it until I was in high school. I always loved my art classes and my study hall. I would leave study hall and go to the art room and draw and paint and things. But when I was a junior in high school, I got asked to apply to a program that they had in New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey, and it was called the Governor School of the Arts. Out here in LA, there's a program called CISA that they hold at Cal Arts, and it's similar to that, but it's a much smaller thing in New Jersey. So I applied to that, and I got accepted, and that's when I really knew this was the direction I wanted to head in, because I showed up in the summertime with everyone else who got accepted into this program, and it was all of the artists from their respective high schools all over the state. And I had this moment where it felt like, oh my gosh, these are my people, like we had a similar mindset and our interests, and that's really where things kicked into high gear for me, where I felt like, oh, okay, this is the direction I want to go in. These are the people I want to surround myself with.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of like the two life-altering moments that I've had. This moment in fourth grade, and then I was a junior in high school.
Kind of gave you direction.
Yeah, it did. And, at that time, I was always really big. I mean, like, you guys know me. Like, I'm pretty social, and I like to be around people. So in high school, I did everything. Like, whatever extracurricular was available, I did it. I was in the plays, the musicals. I did sports. Like, I played field hockey and lacrosse, and
oh my god.
Yeah, I did everything. Field hockey, like I was in love with field hockey. That was my game. I was super into it, and I was doing preseason practice. I was on varsity, and before the school year started, our coach said something really tough. I remember she said, "Now there are those of you who you can hack it, and those of you who can't. And those of you who can't, I want you to just get up and leave." And at that moment, that's when I was a junior, and I was balancing my art and everything else that was going on in my life. And in that moment, I listened to her, and I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, I'm getting up and leaving, because I'm going to choose art in this moment. And
wow.
Damn.
So, and I had played field hockey for a long time, and I really, really loved it. But that statement, that she just so strongly put out there into the world just kind of got my butt in gear. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I'm not gonna choose this. I'm gonna choose art. And so
This is like the climax of a movie.
Yeah, this is you walking away.
It did feel like a movie. Like, I stood up with my field hockey stick, and I was like, you're right, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But that's, that was that defining moment where I said, yeah, this is my focus, and that's what I'm going to study in college. And so that's what I did from that moment forward.
When was on the timeline, the moment when you went to that program with all the other art kids? Was that like the year before, or like compared to that event, about like that field hockey event?
Yeah, it was like within a couple months of each other. So I was 17.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was 17 at that time. And I went through that program, and I think it was the whole month of July that I lived there. It was held on a college campus, similar to CISA. And I lived there for a month, and then I came back, and we started preseason for fall sports just a few weeks later.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, it's like when you meet that group of people, that like-minded group, it's like, oh, yeah. I didn't know I was going to get into animation. I just knew that I really liked visual art.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've never really had, like, Jean, you mentioned just this, like, rocket career path. For me, it's felt very non-linear.
Sure.
I mean, always art-focused, I guess, but just never really knowing what was going to come next, but being okay with just going along for the ride.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, that's how it always ends up feeling too. Yeah, from the inside, because it's like you have no control, and an outsider doesn't see all the moments where there's nothing happening. Like all we track is our friends' like milestones,
Yeah.
and then there's like those years where you're just like working a job. It's just like, and you're totally happy working that job. But yeah, what got you? What was kind of?
Well, I guess like I'll talk about like what's next in that path is I decided to apply to art schools, and I ended up going to the Maryland Institute College of Art, MICA, in Baltimore, right out, after I graduated high school. And I went there. I only stayed one semester. I grew up in a really cute, safe town in New Jersey. And when I got to Baltimore, it just was a shock to the system because it was not a safe neighborhood. We were always notified when there were instances of, bad things would happen. And so there was an obligation that the school had to notify the students, and it just felt constant. And I was being 18 and the first time really living away from home. I was like, you know what? I can't, this doesn't feel good to me. So I decided to go home, and I finished out the rest of that year at our local community college. And I just focused on more art classes, and I did drawing, painting, printmaking, art history. That's just kind of how I filled my time while I tried to figure out what my next plan was going to be.
Right, because you knew that you wanted to do art, but you didn't know like what direction you were taking your art to.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. I just, like MICA was great because they had a foundation level year where you could experience lots of different, areas of art. And it was a lot more fine art focused. So I was really into printmaking at the time, and I was interested in graphic design and photography, but I just didn't really have a focus other than just like making projects. So yeah, I went home and just started thinking about where I was going to apply next. The first time I applied to colleges, I knew about CalArts because my high school boyfriend, actually, he was an artist and he really wanted to go to CalArts. So I had heard about it. But for me, it was too far, like going all the way across the country. I wasn't really up for that at that time. But after having the experience in Baltimore, and I kind of always imagined, I'd go home, and like you always hear college students bringing their laundry home or going home for dinner on Sundays or something. I always thought I would do that, and then I never ended up doing that because I was just busy with whatever was going on there. So at that point, I realized, well, yeah, you know what? I can travel across the country and do that. So I started going to portfolio reviews, and CalArts responded positively to my work, but I knew how difficult it was to get into the character animation program. And it was already at that point, because I was well into the second semester of the community college program, I knew I was so late to the application deadline process. So I was going to apply, but I knew I was way later than everyone else. So I thought, well, I'll apply for graphic design. So I did. And I think it must have been sheer luck because my application was so late. Like maybe someone didn't accept their acceptance because they emailed me. Like it was really weird and unconventional. Like I sent the stuff in, and 2 weeks later I got an email saying I got in. So it just went really quickly. It was like boom, 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 like submitted, you're in. I was like, well, I'm going, I guess. And so I just packed up, and I really didn't have much time to think about it. So I think there was just a stroke of luck there, and my willingness to just go for it, I guess.
Well, you tried it. Yeah. It worked out.
So I actually spent my first year at CalArts studying graphic design, and we didn't really have drawing or, we did have photography that year, but I was missing out on the life drawing that I had done before going to CalArts. So I started showing up to life drawing in the character animation department. And then I just started sitting in on some of the character classes and making some friends. And I just really loved how committed and enthusiastic everyone in that department was. I mean, there was just this energy in that department that was intriguing to me, that I just kind of didn't feel that pull in any other direction. And I'm also, like, you guys probably know this about me, like, I'm pretty competitive. So whenever there's a challenge in front of me, like, I'm really eager to take it on. So the character animation really felt like such an incredible challenge in art, because it incorporates so much of, you know, what you're trying to develop as an artist, that it almost felt like the ultimate challenge.
I think that's really true. I feel like animation is an extremely competitive field, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
one-upsmanship,
and that kind of tracks with your sports past.
Yeah, I know, it's true. I was like, all right, I'm in this game, but yeah, it, you know, because you're not only thinking about drawing, but you're thinking about timing, and you're thinking about composition, and you're thinking about just story, and I mean, there's just so much involved that it was exciting at that time, and so were the group of people that were there studying it. Everyone just was kind of so obsessed that that was fun for me.
I think you're the first person we've had that went to Cal Arts.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think you're the first.
I was going to say that as well. I was going to say you're our first Cal Arts alumni on the show.
Yeah, it's not like we're like against having anybody on the show that's been to Cal Arts, but I think there's this idea in the industry that, like, you have to go to Cal Arts to succeed in animation, and it's not true. Like, I think all of us we know tons of people that have all kinds of, you know, winding paths, and even you, like, you started out somewhere else and then you ended up in Cal Arts. It just felt like the right move for you. And so, but tell us about that experience more, because, like, we've never had anybody talk about it, and because you were like a significant transplant, your perspective on it is probably interesting.
Yeah, it's a little bit different because, you know, starting out in graphic design was great because it just kind of gave me this base layer of college art instruction that was a little different than everyone else's. And actually, I think it helps me more today than it did at that time, when everyone was so focused. But I was drawn to the animation department, and so I had to put together a portfolio just like everyone else, you know, and then apply. And then I started over again as a first year, even though it was my second year at Cal Arts.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so you basically applied to Cal Arts twice.
Yeah.
And got in twice, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting in the second time, there had to have been, you know, like the faculty knew me at that point.
Yeah, it's easier.
So, you know, they knew that animation wasn't my focus, but they knew I was spending the extra time to not only go to my other classes, but go to these additional classes as well. So I think they saw the dedication there. And, you know, I was probably I definitely was untraditional for that department, but I think it brought something unique to the table. I mean, I hope I stood out for that reason.
I'm sure you did. I also think it's important to note that, like, yeah, you went about it. Like, if somebody goes into character animation and they can't get in the first time, but they're really dead set on going to Cal Arts, like, they feel like this is what I need to succeed. Like, yeah, try a different major. Like, try something else out. Just get in the door. Yeah. And they have that experimental animation major that I think might be a little bit easier to get into. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know what the numbers are on that.
Maybe we'll have somebody else on the show that went through that.
But the Cal Arts character animation department, I always felt like every time I talked to someone, they're like, oh yeah, I've wanted to be a Disney animator since I was 3.
Oh,
and I just felt like that was such a common part of conversation in the department that I just did not connect with. So I always did feel like a little bit of an outsider there. But it was cool. I mean, I liked that people were that into something. So that part of it was really infectious. But I loved my experience there. I thought it was, you know, a really freeing experience. I think, you know, you really have to be self-motivated to succeed at Cal Arts, though. If you're not, it's just not the right place for you, because there's no one there telling you what to do or when to do it. Or, you know, I think it's really rare to find that there's no like militant push to get your work done there. The only one who's really pushing you to do it is yourself. So, you know, that's why I think you'll find sometimes that the students that graduate from that department are a little bit older, because if you're joining college at 17, 18, you know, your focus might not be there. So, so sometimes we have people, you know, we had someone who was in their 30s graduate in my class. So I think you really need to have self-motivation.
Yeah.
But I loved it. It was really fun, and, you know, but for me it worked because I was willing to you know, put in the time.
Oh yeah, you're grinding, you're hustling.
What was the difference that you felt in between the community college you went to and Cal Arts in terms of like that aspect of?
Well, actually, you know, the community college forced you to do more work, which I think is great. And it's the same too at MICA in Baltimore. I mean, my experience at MICA, you know, we really learned how to critique other artists. We learned that in class. And that's something that really, I don't know if it's an East Coast difference versus a West Coast difference or just the type of school, but, you know, we would get assignments at MICA. I had an oil painting class, and there were specific assignments that we had to complete. And if we showed up to class and we, you know, blew off the assignment, or someone didn't follow all of the instructions, the teacher, you know, we'd hang up our paintings at the start of class and we'd go around and we'd talk about each one of them. And if someone didn't follow the rules of the assignment, the teacher literally would just knock the painting off the wall.
Whoa!
It was harsh, but it's a good lesson.
I love that.
It's like, you're like, you know, a lot of times, sometimes as artists, we just kind of want to buck the system a little bit. But I do think as part of having a foundation, like, learn the rules, like learn some basics first, learn from people of the past, and start to apply, you know, those skills into your work, just to start to build a foundation to figure out where you want to go. Because when you start not knowing anything and you're just bucking the system, you're really not doing yourself any favors. So I learned how to give a really harsh critique, like right out the gate. And so when I came to California and it was time to critique in the graphic design department, the faculty learned really quickly that I would give an honest critique. So they often asked me first, like if they knew someone wasn't following the assignment. I'd be like, why are we even talking about this? This person didn't put in the work like everyone else.
Hell yeah.
So, you know, like that type of mentality did not really exist so much in the character animation department. It was the critiques were really soft, and I think I'm really glad that I went through the process where I could really take a really hard look at something and try to figure out what I can do better the next time, whether it's through my own work or someone else's, you know, because you can learn through watching someone else's progress as well.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
And it was the same thing at the community college. You know, we were forced to do really specific assignments, and I think it just helped your hand in everything that you do moving forward.
I wish I had that in my school. I mean, it was a pretty lax, like, for-profit art institute that didn't give a shit. But I don't. Yeah, like everyone was all the teachers didn't care, and so like it never felt like there was a strict expectation. And boy, did people, you know, the people who didn't bother to follow the instructions didn't get anywhere. It's not like there's really successful artists now. But for the people like me and my friends that wanted it, it was definitely lacking. And that's why I complain about my school a lot, because it's like it was cheap, to be fair, but it's like I would have loved to have that kind of structure and that kind of, like, I barely even had life drawing, you know, like they barely taught us anything. And so it really was up to us to like grind. And sometimes I wish that I had tried harder to go to Cal Arts or something, just because, like, you know, who knows what that would have done to me early on. And so I'm like,
but then again, I feel like there's so many different ways to go about it. Like, for example, like when I went to Gobelin, like we didn't have any more life drawing classes. It was basically like you were expected to know the fundamentals of art before you entered the school. So all of those, well, it is good, but for me as a student there, since I was pretty young, I wished I had more life drawing classes. So in the third year, I actually signed up to, I guess the equivalent to a community college, like a extracurricular, basically, life drawing classes, just so I could get that more under my belt before I graduated, because I was just like, because it's so competitive. Like animation is so competitive that I don't know, I feel like any experience you can get.
Yeah, I agree with you, V. I think that I would recommend to people to try to get some of that foundation work built in before you go to a place like Gobelin or Cal Arts, because Cal Arts was the same. Like there was a lot that was expected that you should already know how to do at that point. And it just, the more you can do getting your start, the further you can go once you're there, because you're it's a little tricky and overwhelming, and that's probably why it takes people sometimes 2-3 times to apply before they get in. But yeah, I did that too. Actually, in the summers, my summers off from Cal Arts, I would go back to the community college and I would do my general education classes there. So that way, when I got to Cal Arts in the fall, I didn't have to spend as much time in those classes. I could focus more on my major.
I think that's really smart. I think that's also something that, like, maybe, I don't know if it's something that you kept as a practice as well when you started being a professional, but I remember after I graduated from Gobelin, I kept going to life drawing classes for at least 2 or 3 years after I graduated. So I kept this like a weekly practice, at least 2 hours a week, because I feel like foundation, like drawing foundation, is just so important, especially when you have to draw fast.
yeah, you got to loosen up and just like get the draftsmanship down. For sure. But yeah, so that was Cal Arts. What led to your first gig? How did you land that, and what was it?
Gosh, you know what? I'm going to keep saying I was so lucky. It's funny because I do think like there, like, talent is involved, like that's part of the process, right? That's part of the recipe. But timing and luck also, I think, comes into play. So after I graduated from Cal Arts, I was looking for a job, and I ended up interviewing with someone who was also from New Jersey. And I think he was new out here in LA, and I think I got the job because I was also from New Jersey. Like, we just kind of had this thing in common, and it was like, yeah, I'm going to do you proud. Like, it's going to work out. So I got a job as a color stylist on an Adult Swim show called Minora Team. That didn't last very long because it was really offensive.
Yeah.
But it was, that was the start. It was in Hollywood, and there were a bunch of us in one tiny little room. All of our desks were, right next to one another. You could like literally bump elbows with people as you're drawing. And I painted backgrounds and color styled characters and effects and props, and kind of just helped out in whatever way was needed on that show. And then after that, I actually took a break and moved out of LA for a little while. I lived with a friend in Denver, Colorado.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, just to kind of have a different experience and, I don't know, just take a breath from everything that was going on out here. I did that for a few months. I came back and I was like, oh shoot, I've been out of the game. Like, how am I going to find a job? I didn't really have many connections at that point, and I ended up taking a job as a receptionist for, did you ever see that show, The Dog Whisperer by Cesar Millan?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I was a
Wow.
receptionist for that production company
Mhm.
and answered phones for Caesar and some of the other producers there, and scheduled meetings, and I made coffee, and I fed the fish that were in the office, and I walked the dogs. I pretty much did what I even babysat Cesar Millan's kids.
Whoa.
So I just kind of did whatever was needed around the office. And that job was fun. I mean, there was like really no stress to it, but it was a nice way to kind of get back into LA. And I did that for a while. And at that time, I had submitted my student film from that I made at CalArts to some festivals, and it got accepted into the Nicktoons Film Festival.
Mm-hmm.
So it was around that time where I got to show up to Nickelodeon. That was the first time I was ever on the Nick campus. And there was a screening of all of the shorts that were involved in the festival. And then from there, it went into a Frederator Festival. And I won a little award.
Oh,
My film
nice.
won this award called It's So Cute That It Hurts.
Oh.
My film was about a little dog that winks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started just kind of talking more with people in animation and just being involved in that industry. And I met, do you know Mike Hollingsworth?
I know the name, but no.
Mike Hollingsworth is awesome. He was a director on BoJack or supervising director.
Oh, okay.
Or
Yeah.
actually,
I've
maybe
seen the name
he's
around.
the EP on it. I'm not exactly sure his title, but he's Sir Awesome of BoJack. He's really he's super friendly and fun, and his film was in the festival as well. And so I had messaged him online to just let him know I really liked his work, and so he ended up getting me contacted with some people at Oddbot, a smaller animation studio in Eagle Rock, and they were animating shows for Disney Junior. And I tested. That was the time when Flash animation was big, I guess. Like that's what people were getting into. So I met some of these people. I ended up taking a Flash class at Titmouse in Hollywood and got a test for an animation position at Oddbot. And so I got this test, and it was in Flash. And I didn't know how to use Flash. I was like, I was like this fine art kid that just like I drew on paper. Like computers really weren't a big part of my experience at CalArts because we were still doing everything traditionally. And I'm like, oh crap, I don't know how to do this. So what am I gonna do? I literally bought a book, one of those like books for dummies. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, I have to figure out how to use this computer program. So I sat there, I read this book, and they're talking about tweening and nesting symbols, and I'm like, I don't know how to do this. So I just drew it all in Flash, like every frame I just drew. I turned it in. And they called me and they were like, this is one of the best tests we've seen.
What?
Yeah.
You never know.
And they're like, so you know how to use Flash? And I'm like, yeah.
Sure, yeah. Just lying.
So I got the job, and I got there, and there were some awesome animators working there. Crystal Stromer, who maybe you know from Nick, and Anna Hollingsworth, who was not married to Mike at that time, but now they're married. Oh, and Todd was there. Todd.
Oh, yeah. From
Todd
Loudhouse,
Oman. I worked with him, and Miguel worked there. So a bunch of Loudhouse people
wow,
were
yeah.
there.
No kidding.
And I didn't know what I was doing. And so and it was the same type of setup where it was like one room, and we're all kind of housed in this one room, sitting real close to each other. So I'd essentially be like, psst, how do you do that? Psst, how do you do that? Yeah. And annoyed these people so much, I'm sure. But that's how I learned how to use Flash. And
that's amazing.
So I animated. I tried my best to get in some traditional skills in there, and I did that for a season, and then I ended up applying to a job at Jib Jab, and I they were on the west side. And at this time, you know, I was, I don't know, 23. I think I was 23. Yeah, I was 23. So I didn't care. I was driving all over the place. It didn't matter. And I was just happy to have a job. And so I was also animating at Jib Jab. I worked on a lot of those political those videos, you know, with John Kerry and Barack Obama and all that stuff. And I also animated in the Starring You videos where you upload a picture of your face and put it on a dancing elf body. So I animated those and started doing a little bit of After Effects stuff there. And then they started making e-cards. So I did a little more traditionally drawn animation in Flash, which was really fun for me, and designed some e-cards. And I did that actually for about 4 years.
Oh, wow.
It was fun. It was great because there was no end date. It was like there was no season that was going to end. And I was having a lot of fun. The people were great, and just the environment was like really happy all the time. It was joyful. And plus, you were right by the beach in Venice. So it was a great setting. So I did that for about 4 years. And then I wanted to give it a shot to apply to some of the bigger studios. And Gravity Falls was starting up at DTV. And I applied to be a color stylist on that show because I had a little bit of experience doing it. So it didn't feel totally foreign to me. And I believe I might be wrong about this, but I believe there were 12 people who tested for that job. And in the middle of the testing process, so they give you a test and you have an assignment and you get a week to complete it to show what you would bring to the job. So I started my test, and halfway through, I was like, well, let me turn it in and see if I can get some feedback. So I sent it in, and I messaged the art director, and I was like, hey, I'm still working on my test. I've got a few days left, but I wanted to check to see if you had any feedback or direction. And I believe I'm the only person out of the 12 people who did that. I think everyone else just did their test and turned it in.
I think that's really great that you mentioned that, because I feel that's something that we don't often mention. Like, and that's actually an idea that I'd never even had before. I think maybe another guest on the show talked about that process before, but that's a really smart thing.
Yeah, I just figured like, well, why not? Let me see if I'm on the right track. And so he gave me some input and some direction, and I listened to what he had to say, and I applied it to my test, and I ended up getting hired. So
well, you did the same thing for me, and like that, I remember that was huge because like I had done a lot of tests, and that's how it always feels, is like you just do the test and hope for the best. And I think that it's rare that people get hired from it. Like, I don't know, it just felt like throwing stuff at a wall, but it helped that I knew you and we had met like briefly, but I guess I made an impression. And I think you've told me that it was because of the
yeah, do you want me to talk about
you know what, tell that story from your perspective.
Yeah. I always tell the story, but you know what, it goes a long way. I think when people, just to kind of back up a little bit, I was art directing for the Loud House, and we needed to hire someone to do background design. And so Jean was testing for it. I don't even remember if we gave you the test or you reached out for it.
You did. Yeah. Our production manager had reached out and like sent, and I was so stoked. I was like, like somebody actually wants me to test, because up till then, nobody had ever asked. So yeah.
Well, I just like, so you did the test and you did a great job. I mean, it was a hard test, and there were a lot of people who were applying for that job. But what really stood out to me is, you know, like you have a lot of interests that are artistically inspired. And I remember when I met you, you had told Phil and me about you wanted to record a rap album.
Yeah, I had done I had worked on like a video game hip hop project in the past, and I gave you guys the link. I was just like, this is really stupid, but if you really want to check it out, like here, it was called Gumboozle, if anybody wants to look it up. It's still around.
Well, okay, so this is the kind of thing that I'm sure a lot of like creative types have all these ideas, right? Like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. I know I'm like that too, and have all these ambitions. And it just ends at, I want to do this. But Gene actually did it. Like, you did it, and you not only recorded one song, but, like, you recorded a whole album. And it, like, to me, like, Gene's this person that, you know, goes 110%. Like, full force, you go for it, and, you know, like, are you going to become a hip-hop star and have, you know, whatever? Like, maybe not. But the fact...
Oh, yes, I will, Amanda. Oh, yes, I will.
The fact that you just were like, I want to do this, and you did it, and you went for it full force, like that, to me, that's exactly the kind of person I want to have on a team. Like someone who you're going to give an assignment that's maybe a little bit outside of their comfort zone, but they're like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it 110%. And I just thought that was so cool.
I'm still doing it. Now I have a whole album.
I know, and a whole other genre.
Yeah, it's a different thing.
But yeah, I just like knowing that kind of quality exists in someone. Like I don't know, I can't speak for anyone else who's hiring, but for me, I just was like, that is so dang respectable.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I think I think it's important to do things. And I tell people that all the time that are looking for work, and I'll go to look at their portfolio and they have nothing. They'll make pieces, but it feels like it's trying to make a portfolio and not just doing things for the sake of doing them. And to me, like, my eyes glaze over and it doesn't catch my attention. But yeah, it's like, I think I've done a little bit of hiring in the past, and I'm in the same boat as you, where it's like, if people are putting their hearts into something, that comes through way louder. It's like, oh wow, this person really tries to like do shit. And that's the kind of people you always want on your team, is the people who are really care, than the people who are just trying to get like a job with a capital J, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's like a little preview of the passion that exists within an artist. And I just thought that was so cool.
Yeah. But yeah, to bring it back to the test, like, it was exactly that. I actually didn't know that about the test that you took, but it's a good thing to pay forward. I think that it's like, yeah, if you're in a position of testing people, give them notes, because I remember you told me that. I asked you, I was very sheepish about it. I was like, is this okay? Like, is this what you want the look to be like? And you gave me notes, and I was like, that's a good sign, right? Because like, I don't know how this show is supposed to be, and like, if I was working for you, which I did end up, but it's like, if I was working for you, you would be giving me notes, you'd be giving me feedback. So it makes sense for an art director who's hiring to see how artists also receive those notes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like a double test in a way, because you're testing,
sure.
You're like, we're checking out what your instincts are for the show. And then if I'm able to give you notes and see how you receive them, and then see how you apply them, that just gives me like another peek into what you're going to be like as part of a team member on the team. So
yeah.
And like, that was, not all art directors feel that way. Like, maybe
sure.
Some don't want to give notes. Some just kind of want to see what you bring to the table the first time around. But for me, it's like, all is fair in love and war. Like, ask.
Yeah.
The worst you can hear is someone says, no, I'm not going to give you notes.
Yeah, we'd rather not.
Yeah, but you might as well show the initiative and say, like, hey, like, I haven't worked on this show before. I don't know exactly what you're looking for, but let me show you that I'm interested in learning that, because it's a growth. Like think about when you first started on the show to where you were when you were done on the show. Like,
completely different. Yeah,
completely different. So it's a process always from start to finish. And
yeah.
I think if you can incorporate that in a test, and like, I'm not saying that everyone should go out and do that, because sometimes some shows hand out so many tests that you just really couldn't keep up with.
Yeah, they just
doing
can't.
That.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But yeah, I figure ask for notes, and why not? What harm could it really do? It's not cheating.
No, I think there's that feeling. I think people feel like it is like a weakness, but I definitely don't see it that way. It doesn't sound like you see it that way. And so it's just like, Yeah, give it a shot. Ask for notes. See what if you have a rapport with the art director. If you're, and again, it kind of comes down to luck. I was definitely lucky in that I had a rapport with you, and I could reach out to you one-on-one, and that helps. Connections are always important for sure. But still, you never know. Just like send it in, see if they'll give you feedback on your test. But we kind of skipped a little bit of a step, I think, because you were on Gravity Falls, and then tell us kind of where things went from there.
Yeah, so I worked on Gravity Falls season 1, and then I got pregnant, and so I took some time off from work. So I was finishing up the season when I went on maternity leave. So I took some time at home, and I was home for about 10, 11 months. And that's when Star versus the Forces of Evil was getting staffed up. And I knew Darren from CalArts. And I feel like that time before her show got greenlit, because she was working on the pilot at Nickelodeon, actually. It was before it was at Disney. And she had showed it to me a long time before that, and I really liked it. I thought it was super cute, and so I reached out to her to see if I could test as a color stylist on that show, and that ended up working out for me. I got that job, and at that time she was like, she called Phil and I and asked us, I need an art director for the show. I really like Josh Parpan and I really like Justin Parpan. And Phil and I remember we were like, I think we were on a speaker phone call with her or something. And we were like, hire both of them. Why don't you just have 2 art directors? But neither one of them had art directed before. And Josh and I used to sit next to each other. Josh also worked on Gravity Falls. So Josh and I sat next to each other. So I knew Josh pretty well. And I knew Justin because he worked at Jib Jab. So I had a relationship built with both of them, and I really liked them so much, and they're both so talented. So Phil and I were like, just hire both of them. They're great. But it was their first time art directing. So since Josh and I had kind of already had this relationship in color built, because he did background paint on Gravity Falls, I kind of worked with him. He would ask me questions like, oh, Amanda, what do you think about this? What do you think about, how do you think we should handle this? And so I ended up doing a little bit more work than I think a traditional color stylist role would have on my plate. So I ended up kind of leading a bit in color. So it wasn't in my title or anything like that. I was just trying to be helpful because I really like Darren and I really like Josh, and so I was just trying to be like an active, helpful team member. And so we ended up bringing in a couple people onto the color team, and I was basically the lead there. And I worked through the first season on Star, and as we were nearing the end of the first season, well, Kick Buttowski, just to back up a little bit, Kick Buttowski was happening at the same time at Disney TV. That was being produced at the same time that Star was. And Chris Savino was leading Kick Buttowski at Disney. And I guess he had been looking at people's work, people that were there, and he had seen my work and had heard that I was kind of like the lead in this color department on Star. And he's someone who really likes when people take that initiative. So he noticed that and he contacted me. It was right about the time Star season 1 was ending. And Chris contacted me to see if I would want to come in and speak to him about art directing on the Loud House. And I was like, yeah, I definitely want to have that meeting. But like in the back of my head, I'm like, what? Like I've color styled. Like, how am I going to be an art director? But I'm not going to turn down the meeting. Like, you always go to the meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm like, why does this guy want me to do this? But at the same time, I just had to like put those thoughts in the back of my head and just be like, yeah, and just go in confident. And we had a great meeting, and I ended up getting offered that job. So I definitely felt like I was going to be in over my head. But, you have I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I'm sure a lot of us artists have these like insecurities, like, oh, well, is my art good enough? Like, can I actually do this? And
Definitely.
so kind of battling that was tough for me, but I just had to kind of suppress those thoughts and say to myself, like, yes, I'm definitely going to do this. I'm going to make it work. And like, I'm confident in my ability to learn. And I think that was really a key component. Like, I was really, really open to learning. And Chris was a really great teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, like, in that respect, there was a good partnership that was built.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, of course, like, I learned over time, like, I always imagined, like, oh, everyone wants to, you know, get a job and then move up into something else and move into a job that has even more responsibility and, you know, just have a lot more on your plate. And I learned art directing on the Loud House that is not true. Like, there are a lot of people who are really happy doing the thing that it is that they do. And not everyone had that same kind of competitive ambition that I had.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people do, but I also learned that not everyone does. So I think, you know, the combination of all of those things just fueled my fire to just, you know, continuously take things in.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, working with Chris, he had been working in animation for so long and was, you know, so confident and talented and quick. Like, this was the thing that I think was really impactful for me, was watching someone navigate the whole experience and be decisive so quickly, like, knew whether or not he was confident about it. I mean, it sure seemed like it, but like, he would make these choices so quickly.
Yeah.
And at first that was so intimidating for me. I thought, how in the world am I going to keep up with this?
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt like I was only taking in, like, I don't know, a quarter of the information that he was giving out. But then over time, I acclimated to that type of work style. And I do feel like I kind of describe it like, oh, well, I may not be getting it today, but I'm just going to, like, pray for osmosis or something and hope that, like, I'm going to go to bed, close my eyes, and the next day I'll be like, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. And in a way, I feel like, you know, it was a fast-moving train, and I just got on it. And I just tried my best to keep up, and I didn't always every day. I asked a lot of questions. I was really inquisitive and curious about.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah, I did. And, you know, like, I didn't even have to do that, because I just was someone who was genuinely really curious about every aspect of the process. So I asked, and then he, I think, liked that I was interested and curious. And so he would invite me to meetings that I don't necessarily have to be involved in at all, but it was great for me because I felt like I was learning something and gaining something out of it.
I think that, like, there's a weird stigma sometimes, I think, with especially younger artists who are coming in, and they feel like if they ask questions that it, like, again, it's kind of going back to the notes thing. It's like they feel like it shows that they don't know what they're talking about. But I found that, like, asking those questions and especially with production, even, like, just double checking things will make them love you, because it's just like, hey, I'm trying to do my best here. I want to learn. I want to make it easier for you. I want to make it easier for other people in the pipeline. And like there'd be times where I would check in with the color or with the background painters, because I was doing background layout, and I would check in with our background painters, like, hey, can I make these files easier for you to deal with? And their eyes would they would look like they had never been, like, asked that before in their lives. They were like, yes, like, can you just, like, make the spot black a different layer? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, and, like, the other background people were older, and I think they just, like, weren't using Photoshop that well, and so the painters had to do so much extra work, and just that little thing made it a little easier. And like, that goes across the whole pipeline, is like, just ask questions, just be engaged in the process.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I try to communicate to the team that I'm working with that you want to take the step that comes before yours and add to it. Like you want to be additive, but then you, at the same time, you also want to, in passing it off to the next person, make the pass offs, make it, make the handoff smooth, make it easier for the next person to receive that file or, whatever part of the process is. It's like, if you're running a relay race, you don't want to pass a slippery baton to someone.
Sweaty, slippery baton. Yeah, I know what you're talking about with Chris, because when we would do the reviews, it was so breakneck that I almost felt I wasn't doing it right. It's like he's like, yep, that's good, and I was just like on to the next thing. And I kind of came to realize, and maybe you can add to this, I feel like with all the experience that he had, it was like he knows how little time stuff spends on screen, and that's how I always interpreted it, that it's just like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter to overthink this background when it's going to be on screen for 5 seconds and the focus is on the gag anyway. And so it's like worrying too much about the details of every little thing, of every design, of every, it just clogs up the pipeline. But what's your perspective on that? Am I close?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you're in a position like that and you are looking at everything happening underneath one umbrella, like everything from the start to the finish, I think it's really important to not have tunnel vision. At least, for me, I like to really consider the episode as a whole and know where it's worth to spend the time and where it's just not worth it for you personally to get the win. And I think that, animation is a team sport. There are a lot of us involved in making one complete episode. And I think it's really important to give wins to the team. So, when you're reviewing work, I really like to keep in the back of my mind, like, is this wrong? Like, wrong as in it's not supporting the story, or something technically is incorrect, or is this a choice that I personally wouldn't have made myself? And I try to take a step back and take a look at it and say, you know what? Oh, if this wasn't a choice that I personally would have made, like, let that artist have that win, because this is a team effort. It's like, if you are heading up a show, like, I worked on a production once where someone said, my show, my show, my show. And I just fundamentally disagree with that, because this is our show. Everyone is contributing. So let the contribution exist the way the artist would like it to be. I mean, there are times when that's appropriate and there are times when that's not appropriate. But when you're looking at the big picture without tunnel vision, I think it's easy to identify when it's worth it and when it's not worth it. So, but I also am kind of the mindset of like, I don't mind if a character breaks model every once in a while.
Sure.
Like David King drawings on the Loud House. Often,
they're so funny.
They're so good, and they're so funny that, like, when they would slide off show style, they were so great. Like, I wanted to keep them in the show because it just added a whole nother level of, like, a human hand helped create this thing that we're all enjoying. So I really like to consider, just the whole picture, and every little aspect all together at once. That's kind of how I do it.
Yeah, there's always somebody above you that's keeping the ship. Like, everything, your job as an art director is to make sure that all the art direction is consistent. And then Chris above that was keeping even more of everything kind of coherent. And so if you're in the middle of that, if you're a designer or whatever, like, just do what you can, have the confidence, like, you're there for a reason. I had to remind myself of that a lot. Like, you're talking about, like, Imposter Syndrome and stuff. And it's like, early on, it was a lot of like, man, did I just trick everyone into thinking I could do this? Like, did I fool them? But I mean, you brought me on for a reason, and like, I learned, and I tried to adapt the same way that you were saying, like you were asking questions and stuff. And eventually I got into that groove where like, man, that job got easy because it was just like I knew exactly what to expect from week to week.
You were also working with like a total master in that department. Like Larry,
yeah.
Just so wickedly talented. It's like unfair that someone can be that talented.
It's imposing because it's like being the sort of like junior background artist to somebody like that is like, shit. Like I remember early on I was like, I think I told you, I was like, I can't draw like Larry, and you're like, no one can draw like Larry. It's like, it's fine. And I was like, okay.
But you know what? Like, what better person to sit next to and learn from is someone who does that job so well.
Yeah. We taught each other, honestly, because like he is really bad with computers because he's been working for, I don't know, 30 years now at this point, like in animation. And he didn't really know Photoshop or like Cintiqs that well. But, you know, there'd be those days where he would be like, Gene, I just don't know how to do this. And like in his drawl. And I would be like, yeah, sure. Oh, you have this thing open, turn this off. And so like it was collaborative. Like we were helping each other out. And
yeah, it was a good, I think that was a good partnership. I'm really happy how that ended up working out.
Yeah. No, I was happy to, I was working with him the entire time.
It was funny. Nobody believed me. I was like, this is going to work. And people were like,
Really?
Yeah.
Why did they think that?
Well, because Gene kind of got it. You got like an unfair, introduction to the show.
Yeah.
Like unfair initiation, really.
Yeah.
Because you were the new kid on the block. Like we were a team that was established and you came in a little bit later. And I was like, guys, I shouldn't say guys anymore, right? Like everybody, right? Calm down. Everybody calm down. We can introduce someone new into the team. It's gonna work out. It's like, it's so funny how territorial people can get about that kind of thing. But
that's so interesting.
I really was like, please just trust me on this. I really do think this is gonna work out. And it did, and it was great. And then, all the friendships that were formed along the way, that was so unique because that doesn't happen on every crew.
Yeah, the early days were tough on me for a lot of reasons. There was like, I mean, we all know all the interpersonal drama that had happened with me and somebody else on the crew, but like I definitely felt that. I felt this like I couldn't do anything right for a minute. And it wasn't anything that you did. But I was under pressure because I knew I was new. I knew that I was trying to like impress, and I had to justify my existence to some degree, and that's a tough spot to be in, especially when there's somebody else on the crew who like is just resentful of you for no goddamn reason. And so it was just like an uphill battle. But it's going to be an uphill battle for anybody, I think, because even you describing the way that you had to, you were dealing with your own struggles. And I kind of realized that later. I was like, man, Amanda, like I realized later, I was like, that was probably tough for you too, because that was your first time art directing. And so we were both in this like position of trying to prove ourselves to our bosses.
Yeah.
And it's tough. But yeah, again, to Chris's credit, like there was a lot of new blood in that show. And I mean,
that was my first job in LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of careers were launched.
I know, and I know you guys talked with Jared Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We got Jordan. We've had Ari.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of Loud House people, and
Jared's story is just so great because I feel like I just saw this one drawing of his, and we were having a really hard time filling that position, and I saw this one drawing online, and I was like, that's the guy. I just felt it in my bones. I was like, that's the guy. Let's hire him. He, I think, I don't know, probably was just weirded out and shocked by the whole thing because he wasn't even seeking it out. I tried to, find him.
Yeah. Him and David are a really good prop design combination because their drawings are batshit. Like they're
well, yeah, art. I mean, we had David King and I was like, who in the world are we going to find who's going to bring like that comic book influence, but you know, no one's going to match David in the style that he's bringing, but we did need to find someone who could bring a certain energy that could match David's energy, just like in a line drawing. So that was a really, really tough position to fill. It was like finding, you know, a needle in a haystack. Check
out our episode with Jared Morgan. Yeah. Link is right here. Clem will throw that in. Shout out to Clem. Thank you for editing our episodes. But yeah, well, so Loud House was a hell of a time, and it, you know, I think we all know how things kind of went. But and then you moved on eventually, and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So when I left Loud House, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do at that point because I just wanted to take a break. Things were really, you know, we had been on the show a long time and things got really intense, and I just wanted to take a breather, I hadn't been home with my kids, you know, since they were babies, so I spent some time home with them before, you know, they really got into school. And I just kind of wasn't, similarly to how my career began, like I wasn't on a specific path. I just kind of allowed things to happen naturally. Yeah. And I ended up, I don't even know how it came about, but I ended up talking with Craig McCracken about his new show, Kid Cosmic, for Netflix. And they ended up bringing me on as a color supervisor. At that time, the show was not in full production. They were making shorts, and the shorts were intended to introduce the show. That's not how it ultimately ended up happening when the show came out, but actually the shorts kind of infused themselves into the episodes. It was really interesting to see it all, you know, when it came out on Netflix. I was like, oh, I worked on that, but now it's in an episode. So I went over to Netflix for a while, kind of a short while, and I helped out on Kid Cosmic, and I worked on the shorts. And then it was summertime, and I decided to take a break with my kids again, and we spent the summer, we rented a car, we flew to New Jersey where I have some family and friends, and we spent 6 weeks in New Jersey. I took them all over the place. We went to places like farms that I visited as a kid. We went to art museums. I took them into Philadelphia. We visited
the motherland.
Yeah, I mean, we did so many fun things together that summer, and I just wasn't focused on work at that time, which was really, really great. It's like I had intended to take that breather after the Loud House, and I just kind of got sucked into another job pretty quickly. So it was nice to take that big chunk of time to just not think about work at all. Like I wasn't even near LA. So, you know, I had the best summer with those little guys. And
I think that's something that, I think you're the first mother that's working in animation that we've had on the show.
Yeah.
And that's also an interesting perspective. And I'd love to hear more about that because I was working with you every day, and I know how stressful it was for you to be. You were doing a lot. Like, I know, and again, like, especially the more I kind of learned about, in retrospect, how much you did, it's like, holy shit, you were doing a lot to keep the artists from doing too much and just keeping the show on track. And I know that, yeah, like you're saying, like, it was, from what I remember you telling me, it was hard to do that, to kind of juggle the job and, like, you know, the motherhood, because your kids were babies. You know,
yeah, they were little toddlers. Yeah. So yeah, it's tough because I think that we have a tendency, because we don't have jobs that you clock in and clock out. No. And because there's this blurred line between what we love to do for fun as a hobby, like have art as something we do at home, but have it also be your day job, the time of when you're at work and when you're at home just can feel fuzzy sometimes. So I really try to make it a point to say, like, these are my work hours, and if I don't get it done today, I will work on it tomorrow. And, you know, like, I always thought about it like, you know, we're not working at a hospital. No one is this is not life or death. No one's on an operating table. Like, we are making cartoons. Like, it can wait until tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I really tried to stand firm on that and make sure that I left work at a reasonable time every day, so that way I could see my kids. Like, sometimes I'd only see them for 20 minutes before they had to go to bed because they were just little. So I really had to stand firm on the amount of work we were all contributing, because it affected me as well. So I tried to stay very focused on the task at hand and not let anything, you know, like how we were talking about before, like not getting into this unproductive zone of noodling one tiny little thing. So I tried to balance that for myself, but I tried to also balance it for the crew. And I think ultimately that helped me have a more healthy work-life, you know, work-life, home-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot, but, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's been really, I never thought about how my actions would impact other people in our industry until other women were approaching me and saying how inspired that
oh, that's amazing,
that they were. Yeah, it was so awesome. Like, the first time someone said that to me, I was like, oh my God, that's so nice, thank you. That's like, it really touched my heart. But then it continued to happen, and women were telling me how inspired they were to see that you know, see me working but also being an active parent. And a lot of times, you know, when your babies are babies or toddlers, they want their mom. So as a working mother, you sometimes end up taking on more responsibility at home, and it's not easy. But I think just really making sure that you can create clear boundaries everywhere, you know, when I leave my kids, when I leave my job, all of it. So I mean, it is like a mental balancing act, kind of.
It is.
But I think that being a mother has made me a better employee. I think that working in our industry has made me a better mother. So I think really kind of trying to extract, you know, what's good out of each experience just enhances one another. I think. I mean, at least I hope.
Do your kids? Oh, I'm sure it does. Do your kids? Do they get? Because they're getting older. Do they like get that their parents work in animation and that's like a cool thing, or do they not care at all?
No, they do. They just turned 8 now.
Oh my God.
I know. They're like almost as tall as me, I feel like. That's not saying much, actually.
No.
I'm not that tall. But yeah, they get it now, because since we've been home quarantining, we've been going through so much TV. So and Phil, my husband, is just, you know, I think so many people in our industry really love and respect him. And so he's drawn as a character in so many different shows.
Oh,
so
yeah.
We will show them all of these shows, and they think it's awesome and they think it's hilarious. But they've recently been watching so much and then seeing our names in the credits. They get really excited. I think it kind of gives them an unhealthy idea of what work is. I think they, you know, once they figure out what they want to do one day, they might be like, oh man.
Yeah, maybe.
But I hope not. I hope that they find something that they love. But
they will.
But yeah, they know that it's our job, and but they also know it's really fun.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, they see, especially last year, I feel like they must have been exposed to it even more directly, because
they watched all of Adventure Time, every single episode. They've watched all of We Bare Bears. They loved that also.
I just mean because they're like they're seeing you guys work now too. They didn't see that before.
Oh, it's so funny. Sid came over, you know, because we're all in one space now. So he's hearing me work. And so Sid comes in and he tries to call retakes on episodes.
Oh, like, a director in the making.
I know. He what did he say the other day? Oh my gosh, it was so funny. Like, I think he said something and called it take twos. And Phil and I just looked at each other and we're like,
oh no.
My goodness.
Yeah, that's it. Got a little supervising producer now.
I know. I'm listening for sound effects or music, and he comes over and he's like, Mommy, I see something on Batgirl that's not supposed to be there.
Oh my, hey, that's good. You know, it's the second pair of eyes.
Yeah. He's
Put him to work.
He's like, can you change that, please?
Yeah, put him to work, finally.
Yes. So funny.
So, yeah, so you took that break. You took some
Yeah,
time
so
with
I
the
took
kids.
that break, and I was actually in New Jersey on that vacation, and I got a call from Jay Bastian, who's an exec at Warner Brothers, and they were looking for someone to come in and show run season 2 of DC Superhero Girls. Lauren Faust created the show and got it started up with season 1 and eventually moved on to something else. So they needed someone to come in and fill that role. And so Jay called me, and, you know, we talked about it for a few weeks. And eventually when I came back, I went in and met, and I was like, yeah, I want to do it. I mean, that's like such an awesome opportunity. And I did feel like, you know, just to backtrack a little bit, on the Loud House, I was art directing, but my role expanded over time.
Yeah.
So I had started directing episodes, and that's like, to touch back on what I was saying about working with Chris, like, I was really inquisitive and just curious, and I wanted to know about, you know, locking episodes and cutting scenes and cutting, you know, episodes down to time and all of these things that weren't part of my job, but I was interested. And so he would bring me along, and I was learning and asking questions as we went. And then, you know, I was going to music spots, and I was going to mixes, and essentially I was just a fly on the wall for all of this stuff, but I was taking it all in. And, you know, my role, things changed on the show, and my role expanded, and I got to do more of that actively for the show, which was great. I didn't do it, you know, like at that time, I always thought like, oh yeah, one day I want to run a show. But we were doing so well on the Loud House, and everything was running so smooth. I always kind of imagined like, oh, that'll be like 10 years down the road. Like, I don't know, one day I want to do that. But, you know, things kind of got turned upside down, and it just all happened at once, and we all kind of just had to start taking on more work. And I don't feel like I did it long enough to really feel super confident about it, but I did do enough of it to feel like, yes, I can do this. Like,
Sure.
Of course I need more practice at it, but I can do it. Like, I don't know how to speak the language fluently, but I know enough to get by. So when Jay at Warner Brothers called me, I thought, you know what? Well, this is the time for me to just like throw a little bit of caution to the wind and just believe in myself and just have confidence that I'm going to be able to pull this off. And so I started that job, and honestly, it was so hard in the beginning because the season 1 of that show, just there were so many things that were happening that were not ideal on that show. So there were a lot of really like disgruntled employees on that show. So when I got there, people didn't know who I was. I was this, you know, I came from Nickelodeon. I didn't know anyone at Warner Brothers. They didn't know who I was. I was all of a sudden the new lead of this show. They were already angry about a bunch of things that had happened.
Sure, yeah.
You know, like, I think everyone on the show genuinely really loved the show and loved, you know, their contribution and the art that was coming out of the show. And I did too, which is what was even more exciting for me. It just looked beautiful and fun. And ooh, he scared me.
Look up.
He's upset about something in the pipeline.
I don't know. He heard something. Squirrel. I don't know. So yeah, I think everyone was really proud of the work that they contributed, but there were just a lot of things happening externally that just people were a little bit out of sorts when I arrived. So no one, you know, I think it just was a tough start. Like, similarly to how you came into the Loud House and you were the new kid on the block, I was the new kid on the block now at Warner Brothers. And just the way things were done there was different than how they were done at Nickelodeon. Just like the order of things and just the process was different. So I was acclimating to this new place where things were done a little bit differently. It's funny because like it's a new season of a show, but every show seems to do things a little bit differently. So I was learning that, as well as trying to learn everyone on the team, understand what they were contributing, and it was really hard at first. This was my first time really being involved with the story making process from outline through script, and so I was taking in a lot of new information and also trying to rebuild something that felt broken at that time. So it was really, really hard. But, you know, I had a couple of people that really welcomed me with open arms and, you know, became my allies, and we worked so great together. So it was tough, but eventually, you know, things started to fall into place, and I started to learn the, like, quote unquote Warner Brothers way. It's so funny because everyone says, oh, that doesn't exist. But like at every turn I always heard, well, that's just how we do it at Warner Brothers. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, all right. Like, what am I going to do with this information? So really trying to make it my own was challenging.
Sure.
And then we all got sent home in quarantine. The whole pandemic started, so we hadn't even shipped one episode when we got home. So we essentially created the entire second season from home.
That's nuts.
Wow.
And so I feel so proud of the whole crew, how everyone came together, you know, especially, you know, like, we didn't know each other, and we didn't even have our whole crew in place when we went home for quarantine. So a lot of us finished out this season and have never even met in real life, which is wild.
Sure. Yeah. There are people on the crew that I was on that I have never met. And I feel like I might even know them better than if I was just like, we were separated by cubicles, you know. Yeah. There was a closeness.
Yeah, so I feel really proud of everyone's contributions and just what they did to just stay committed to the show. And, you know, I think that actually being home and making the show was better for me because, I can sometimes be outwardly frustrated about things. So it was nice to, when I had that type of experience, just be in my own home to deal with it.
I relate to that a lot, actually.
So it, you know, like if something isn't going well, like, you can read that on my face. So like, being home and really navigating this uncharted territory, both from living and working through a pandemic, but also trying to run a show for the first time. Like,
I can't imagine.
It was really hard. So it was helpful for me to be home where I could just, like, get up out of my chair and just go get a drink of water and, you know, kind of figure out what I needed to figure out to move to the next step.
Absolutely.
So I feel like, in a way, I was lucky for it to work out that way, because who knows how many people I probably would have pissed off. I probably already pissed off a lot of people just by being there. Who knows? That's
just being a showrunner.
Yeah.
You're going to piss people off.
Especially coming in second season, like when there are people who are already used to doing something one way, and now someone new comes in and tells you, well, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it this other way. But that's why they hired me. So I just had to kind of, like, stay true to that mindset of, like, well, that's why they asked me to come in here and help out on this show.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't want to be swayed.
Yeah. You did something right for them to come to you, so you might as well.
But it like we are rounding the corner of finishing our season. Like we're just in post now. We've shipped all of our episodes, and I really do think that like we hit a stride. I think we hit a stride and things started coming together and everyone was like working together nicely. And so I think it was successful. Now, hopefully people will like the episodes.
I'm sure they will.
That's the next step.
That's crazy. That's what I mean by rocket. I know it doesn't seem like to you because you've been at it for a while now, and these jumps happen so far apart, and it's always kind of out of nowhere. But I don't know anybody else that went from color designer to art director to showrunner in the span of 10 years?
Less even.
Yeah.
Wait, who?
Yeah, less than that. So.
Oh, less than that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's very impressive.
Yeah.
Well, I like a challenge.
Sure. But that's part of it. I think you rise to the challenge and you nail it.
So that's great.
Thank you. That's so nice.
Of course. Talk about a little bit about like how you deal with creative block and what it looks like to you. And I'm sure, especially in the last year, it's been tough.
Yeah. Well, I think what's been beneficial about being home is you can have those moments to just breathe. Like if I'm watching an animatic and I know we need to change something about the way it's working currently, and I don't know what the answer is yet, I can just kind of close my laptop and walk away and take a walk, like literally go outside, walk around the block. And I'm kind of, I like to sleep on things sometimes if I'm feeling blocked. I do feel like I am a pretty decisive person naturally. And I own the fact if I'm wrong. Like sometimes you just have to answer the question to get to the next stage, right? And so sometimes I'm quick to answer the question, like, okay, we're going to do it this way. Because honestly, like sometimes a decision just needs to be made. And a lot of people don't want to make decisions. And I'm completely fine with just making a decision and going for it. And sometimes it turns out that decision was wrong or not the right way to go. But like owning it in the sense of seeing that it wasn't the right choice and saying like, okay, well, we did it this way. Next time we'll do it this other way.
Yeah.
But in terms of like feeling creatively blocked, I think just changing it up, like go get some exercise. That's been really helpful for me, whether it's walking or riding a bike, just kind of giving your mind something else to focus on. Since we've been home during the pandemic, I got this like tall hydroponic garden that I started working on, and I knew nothing about gardening, but I just needed something for my mind to focus on that wasn't stressful. Like, oh my God, people in the world are dying of, this horrible sickness. And then, that's like a huge worldly problem. But then also, I'm responsible for this whole team of people. I'm learning as I'm going. Like, that's really stressful. I've got kids that need to be homeschooled. That's really, it's like all of this stuff. So I just needed to think about something that wasn't heavy. And that was so helpful. It's still helpful. Just going out, spending some time on that, and just getting fresh air.
I do agree that like it's something that I've like read a lot about, actually, just like going on walks. Like a lot of writers / composers or even like painters just like walk a lot or walked a lot. Like I'm talking about like the big names, kind of like philosophers or whatever. Like that's something that's, and I've read articles that there's like studies about like how it kind of like has like your, like, first of all, better blood flow to your brain. So that kind of helps with like the neurons kind of pinging differently. So there's science to back that up.
Definitely. Yeah, I believe it. I mean, I felt so much better this past summer walking, just to clear my mind. Sometimes I would just, like, I have noise canceling headphones, and I would put those on, put on some music, and just walk. And some days I would walk for like 2 hours.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I just was like, this is making me feel really good mentally and also physically. So, you know, if I had the time to do it, I would do it.
Yeah, that's good. I think a lot. Yeah, I feel like that's something we've heard time and again, and it's a good reminder. And I feel like I definitely forget. I forget to like just go outside sometimes. I mean, it's hard because we've been told not to so much. But yeah, anytime I go out, I started getting into skateboarding again a little bit.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know how to do any tricks, but I'm just like, I just like will ride up and down, and I get winded, and I'm like, oof, I am getting old. And but just doing that a little bit here and there, it's also like a new skill. It's like you with the hydroponic garden. It's like it's a thing that does not matter to anybody but me, and it's something that I feel good getting a little bit better at. And man, that does wonders to just like getting away from the grind, you know.
I feel like this is like a very common thing that I hear from artists that have been in the industry for a little bit. It's kind of like there's a moment you wake up and you're like, I don't have any hobbies.
Yeah.
What am I?
Our hobby was drawing for half of our life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. That's totally true. I often feel like I don't have any hobbies, but I think in part for me, that's like I am interested in so many things that I never dive really deep into any one of them to feel so invested that it feels like a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like play so much. I don't know. I'm hard on myself. It's like I definitely got into photography, and that was a hobby.
Yeah, you do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I know you do. You do tons of other things. Because you were doing photography. I remember. Yeah, you were doing like photography on the side while you were art directing on Loud House. Are you kidding me? You were being a mother to toddlers and doing photography freelance and art directing and probably some other shit. I don't know. It's like give yourself some credit.
I started the photography because I was working on Gravity Falls. And I just like would get to work and sit in this desk chair all day long and just stare at this computer all day long. I just felt like I wasn't moving my body at all.
Yeah.
And I'm not like a super athletic person, but I also like feel the need to move my body. So I thought, well, what's something creative and artistic that I could do that's not sitting at a desk? And so I picked up a camera and started that whole journey into photographing weddings. And that was awesome because like when you're photographing a wedding, you don't have a minute to sit down. You are go, go, go all day. Sometimes it's 12 hours. And I would, in the pursuit of moving my body, sometimes I would come home and be like, oh my God, I'm so sore. But that was good. It was like healthy and it was creative. Like I was still, working on my craft just in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it all goes somewhere. It all comes back around. That's something that I got to remind myself of. And it's like even the hobbies are even just beyond, even if you just, obviously it's good for mental health just to have something else to do and take your mind off things. But it ultimately, it probably still teaches you skills that are going to be reapplied back to your job and like what you do and your passions. Like,
yeah, for sure. Like when I'm calling retakes on an episode, there are often things that I'm calling that I never would have noticed had I not gotten into photography.
Yes.
So I think all of it like comes together in some way or another eventually.
It does. Is there any kind of influences that you have that you feel like are really important to you and tie back into your career and just like your passions?
Well, this is kind of a tough question for me because it's not I don't have one specific influence, and it's more of how I see everything happening in the world and
Sure.
kind of how I'm receiving all that information. Because I don't know, like I can watch, do you ever remember that show, So You Think You Can Dance?
Yeah.
Okay, so that show was on, I think it was like pretty new when I started my career, like in a job. And I used to come home from work and watch that show. And I was really inspired by it because, you know, I was animating during the day, but in the evening, I was watching these people dance on TV. And so many of the things that I'm thinking about during my, you know, during the work hours, I'm seeing in these dancers, like the timing of their movements and just the focus of their energy, like where your eye is supposed to track. And so like I'm really influenced by lots of different types of art. Growing up, my grandma was also very creative, and she had a pottery studio attached to her house. So she was always creating things, but she would include me in that process. But then she would also take me to art museums. And living in New Jersey, we weren't that far from New York City. So she would take me to Broadway shows. And so I was absorbing art in so many different ways that I just think, you know, I have influence, you know, I'm influenced by lots of different arts. And I think like my own particular brand of what's exciting and interesting to me is like, I do feel like I view so much of life as a composition, whether it's a drawing, or if it is a painting, or if it is a piece of music, or if it is a movie, or if it is a Broadway show, you know, or a dance performance.
Sure.
So I kind of have this, I don't know, I was talking to Phil about this, and he was like, you like things that are visually very tight. And I was like, well, what do you think that means? And he's like, you just like things that are organized in a really specific and thoughtful way. And I thought, yeah, you're right, I do.
Oh, that makes sense with choreography.
Yeah, and I think when I see something done that I think feels right to me, I feel like it's done well, it just brings me a lot of satisfaction, even if it has nothing to do with me at all. It just like, you know, when you see something and you love it and it just like sits so well with you, it's like, like that's
I feel like you would love the subreddit Oddly Satisfying. It's all like things
yes,
get all together perfectly.
Totally. That kind of stuff is right up my alley.
It's like borderline OCD.
Like, there's like this one page that I follow that it's like home improvements, like why did they do it this way?
Sure.
You know, like things that are so oddly built make me so mad. Like
yeah.
So yeah, that would be like the example of a terrible life composition. But I'm so energized, I guess, in both directions, really, whether it's done well to my liking or whatever, or the total opposite way. But like, he was right in identifying that, like, I really feel like that is the stuff. Like, when something is thoughtful and organized and feels just right. It's like kind of my blessing and my curse. You know, like my husband will be hanging a picture on the wall and I'm like, it's a little too high on the right. It's a little too low. You know, like it's just kind of exhausting sometimes, to be honest.
That's so funny that you mentioned that, because like when I am like kind of the opposite way, when I go back into my like notebooks or like diaries, you know, like kind of like those like almost Dutch journals, or the one that I love the most are the ones that are the most disorganized. I just like looking at the pages and I'm like, wow, I had fun.
Yeah. I do not have that gene V at all. I am like so uptight, I think, about things.
That's so funny.
What's the thing in your house that drives you the most crazy, and the thing that makes you the happiest when you look at it, as far as that goes?
Like, just like in general, or visual?
Well, like like visual, because I feel like everyone, you know, we didn't build our homes. So it's like there's got to be something that you're like, God, I wish I could have fixed that. Like
everything. That's
God.
that's what I mean. It's so exhausting because like visual really matters to me. Yeah. And I feel like my critical eye is so much stronger than my hand that I feel like I can never keep up with what I want in my mind. So sometimes, like, my home is probably the worst example. I'm like, oh, I'm terrible at like interior design, and people are like, what do you mean? You were an art director, you should be so good at that. And I'm like, no, it's the worst because it's your own space. And
yeah, you're bound by physicality too.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the best things are just like when we can enjoy being where we are. I mean, I guess that's kind of like the hippie response, but it's so true. Like when you become a parent and you see your kids just having the best time at something, there's no better feeling than that.
Yeah, they don't care if the house if there's like a wall that's not where it should be.
No, they don't care about it.
Yeah, they're gonna grow up loving that house.
But for me, it's like I'm constantly wanting to improve upon all of it. But I gotta say, okay, so I will give you an answer then. So there was a show that came out since we've all been home during the pandemic about like organizing your homes and things, called The Home Edit. And that was super inspiring to me because I'm like, I am so annoying. Like, I like my closet organized by rainbow color order. Like,
that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, like my closet, I take a picture and send it to you. It's like everything is organized by color because I'm like, well, then I can find it so easy.
Yes.
So when this show came out, I was like, oh my gosh, another one of those moments where it's like my people. And so I started kind of implementing some of their techniques around the house, and I just have kind of gone a little bit bonkers with it.
As long as you're enjoying yourself. I mean, that's kind of that's a hobby in itself, you know?
It is,
so
but it's so satisfying. It's like I open up the pantry and all the snacks have a space and...
that sounds good.
Yeah, it looks so good that way.
I'm the same as you. Well, I'm looking at my bookshelf and like I organize all of the books by size and like author. Like there's a system.
Yeah.
And I know like my dad's the same way. I definitely get it from him. And like if somebody messes with one of those things, I notice and it drives me fucking crazy. I'm like, don't do this to me. Like I need this in the right place. Like it'll make me upset if it's not the way I meant it to be.
Oh, I know exactly what I'm gonna do next time I come.
Don't.
Your play.
You're not the first. People people know they can like they look at it and they're like, oh, Gene has got some OCD problems, and I'm like, you fuckers. I'm
kind of like jealous to some extent of you guys because like that's like oh my god, I have such a problem. Like I swear to God, every single day I tell myself when I'm done working, I'm going to tidy up my desk, and I absolutely can never do it. I can never tidy up anything. It's really hard. It's just like I have to have like 2 hours to tidy up everything, but I cannot like keep anything in order.
It's it's a personality thing. You could look at our Jamboard and see the difference in how we approach things, because my side of the page is always just like 3 drawings that I am like really trying to get right, and then with you it's just like, you know, explosions of colors and lines, and it's the way our brains think, the way we process things. Because my desk is spotless, Fee.
Dude,
my desk is immaculate.
I gave up. I tried for 10 years, and now I'm just like, it's just who I am.
Accept it. Whatever. We're all different. Takes all kinds of fruit to make fruit cup. Amanda, is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap things up?
I don't know. Thanks for thinking of me.
Of course, yeah.
Bringing me on to talk with you guys. It's fun.
What kind of stuff do you have in mind for your future? Like, do you have any goals in mind?
Oh my gosh. What goals do I not have? This is like the thing that drives Phil crazy, because like I want to do everything. Like, you know, I told you guys like in high school I did everything. Like I contributed everywhere. That is like my disease. Like I, honest to God, want to do everything. I wish that there was time in life to do more.
Yeah.
Actually, I love working from home. I mean, I miss people and I wish I could go in sometimes, but I love working from home because I do feel like I get to dabble in more things that I wouldn't get to otherwise. I don't know. I mean, okay, like if I fast forward into the future and I'm retired, what I want to do is live in a place that is beautiful, that I have land to look at, and maybe have some chickens. I don't know, just kind of like...
Ooh, yeah, chickens.
Yeah, like slow it down visually, I guess, but still be active. I don't know. I like always envision myself learning more about cooking. That's something I like to do, and I've taken some cooking classes in the past, but like that's a focus I would love to do, you know, once, you know, life changes a little bit.
I like that.
Just, I don't know, slow it down and enjoy taking a breath.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to plug to our listeners?
Oh yeah, you gotta watch DC Superhero Girls season 2.
Watch DC Superhero Girls!
I do not know yet when it's going to be out, and I don't know where they're going to show it. It will be on either Cartoon Network or HBO Max or Netflix. I don't know yet.
Yeah, who knows?
But like a whole season is gonna drop, and I'm really excited about it. We focused this season. I think there were a lot of superheroics happening in season 1 that were really fun and action-packed. And in season 2, I think we spent a little bit more time focusing on just like interpersonal teenage issues and, you know, the girls' relationships to each other. And we spent a lot of time actually poking fun at each of them. Mm-hmm. We did a couple of musical episodes, so there's some, I don't know, some fun stuff in there, and I hope people like it.
I'm sure they will.
And yeah, more fun stuff to come after that.
Great. Well, that's the end of this creative block. Thanks to Amanda for being our guest and sharing her story.
And thanks to your listeners. Follow us on Twitter. It's at Creative Block, creative without the vowels, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to my sister Clemens for editing the podcast.
Please subscribe to the channel if you love our content. I've been your host, Gene.
And I was V. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.